Because Kansas football and the Big 12 don't want to compete in the big time, well, now Missouri has to compete with high school football.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball. And on today's program, as several people have reported, well, Bryson Tiller, the former Jayhawk, is going to be visiting Kansas. And this is a positive on at least one level. It shows that Missouri is very serious about the center market. But, before we get into hoops, some big basketball news here broke. Well, earlier today here on this Friday evening as I record the program here, Mizzou and Kansas, the border war, or I suppose more politically correctly known now as the border showdown, moving to Friday night, September 11th, 2026. And I got to say, excuse me, my immediate reaction here is, gee, let's just ruin everyone's Friday night who is involved in high school football, whether you're a player, a coach, a parent, a girlfriend, a referee, an announcer. There's just a ton of people, obviously, are huge fans of college football. They're involved in the high school level, too, and especially what was once considered a great rivalry, one of the oldest rivalries in all of college football, especially before Missouri left for the SEC in 2011, was Missouri and Kansas. And if you want to get that rivalry, well, to recapture some of its previous prominence, I suppose the argument is, actually, this is good for Missouri and Kansas because, well, this opens it up to a potentially even bigger national audience because, well, the eyeballs will be, simply put, a lot more of them on Missouri and Kansas. Well, that could be true. But here's the thing. I actually don't care one iota about national rankings. Okay, maybe that's a little bit hyperbolic. I care a little bit, I suppose, but not nearly as much as I care about actual Missouri fans. And it is, I suppose, worth pointing out that this isn't great for the Kansas people who are into high school football either. But I feel less sorry for them as they're the ones whose representatives are essentially making this decision. This is a Big 12 call. This is not an SEC call. This is not a Missouri call, with the Kansas game being in Lawrence, of course, for the first time since all the way back in 2005. Missouri hasn't won a game in Lawrence since 2001. I just don't like the idea of, well, forcing Missouri fans essentially to make a choice or to try to record the game and then plug their ears for all of Friday night. I just don't really care. If let's say the viewership, as Jacob, a nice guy on X, was saying, hey, I personally like Friday night football. It's under the lights, not many other competing games, so we will potentially get double the viewership we would have gotten on Saturday. Well, let's say that that's true. Number one, Nielsen ratings have always been a little dubious. I think they're even more dubious these days. I just don't believe, especially compared to, well, actual streaming numbers. Now, that's sometimes propriety and not available to the public, but put it this way, Netflix knows who's watching their programming. On the other hand, traditional television, whether it's Fox, whether it's cable television, whatever it might be, FS1, that's harder to measure, and it always has been. Simply put, small samples, and sometimes people aren't even necessarily telling the truth about the programs that they're watching. But without getting too far afield here, again, ratings. Let's say that game does double what it would have done on ABC on a Saturday afternoon, or ESPN2 on a Saturday afternoon, for example. Is that much of a gigantic win for Missouri? Well, only if Missouri wins the game, by the way. You got to assume the Tigers are going to win the ball game if you want that benefit. Obviously, losing in Lawrence, I'd actually want as few people as possible to see that from a national perspective. But again, this whole discussion to me is a lot of the problem with college football. It's the constant chase for the short-term dollar over thinking about the long-term health of the sport. If you're going to have Friday night football and college football increasingly here, I just don't want to be involved in it. If that's something the Big 12 wants to do, if they want to be minor league and suddenly start playing their best games on Friday, well, go for it. Have fun. I think that's absurd. College football is about Saturday afternoons. It's about the event, or Saturday nights, by the way. I don't care if the game's at night or in the afternoon on Saturdays, but I will say I'm fine with sunlight as well. There's nothing wrong with a 2:30 or an old school 1 p.m. kickoff either. The point here is that, all right, fine. That might be good for your television partner at a certain point to have this game move to Friday, but at a certain point you're kind of killing what makes college football special. And we got to remember, while this sport has been very popular for decades now, probably starting to peak in the 1980s with the rise of cable television, has really just risen ever since. There's no guarantee of that in the future, no matter what people say. You can be a prisoner of the moment and say, hey, everything's fine. Let's just make college football into NFL light. Like, it'll basically be no different. There'll just be a lot more teams. I don't know. Long term, I'm not sure how that works out. I will say this. The one thing to me, the most important thing that you have to keep with college football is Saturdays. It's Saturday. It's the event. That's what it is. Those 6 or 7, 8 games in Columbia, in Lawrence, Kansas, in Columbus, Ohio, Austin, Texas, whatever it might be, suddenly those games every single year are the biggest thing in the world. Well, there's a lot of small towns like California, Missouri, and Ashland, Missouri, and other places where Friday night football is the biggest thing in the world too. Let's not have those two things compete. That's something for years. That was a Rubicon that the NFL didn't want to cross, and now they're doing it too. I just think we're just going to try to please Netflix and Amazon Prime and Fox Sports and whoever it is. I just think long term that's not a great bet. And coming up on the program, let's talk about, well, Missouri getting serious, I think, in the center market, which is a good sign. Also, hopefully that market, at least for Missouri, is wrapped up sooner than later. Let's talk some more about timing and Eli Drinkwitz and his biggest new reality coming up. But first, this word from our friends at Mazda.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. UCLA made history by winning its first NCAA Women's Basketball National Championship, dominating South Carolina 79-51. The Bruins controlled the game from start to finish with elite defense and balanced scoring, finishing the season 37-1. Star center Lauren Betts was named Most Outstanding Player, leading a team effort that capped a 31-game winning streak. Under head coach Corey Close, UCLA secured a landmark title that has been decades in the making. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, I'm coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment. Putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
And if you've been putting off making that all-important hire at your workplace, well, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed-sponsored jobs. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed-sponsored jobs. And what if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not just you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action, so when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Events contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and a swap firm. And speaking of Kansas, according to Sharius Latta at the Kansas City Star, well, former Kansas Jayhawk Bryson Tiller is going to be visiting Missouri this weekend. And first of all, just from the roster perspective, I love that Missouri's getting aggressive early in the process here with centers for a guy in Tiller who Arizona is interested in, Michigan is interested in. So some serious money basketball schools there right now. Obviously, the Tigers are not going to be maybe in that level of spending through the entire process, but specifically at the center position, the big man spot, power forward, basically an athletic big man who can maybe step out and shoot the three a little bit. Although I will say Tiller's offensive numbers last season weren't particularly efficient or anything like that. A former McDonald's All-American, 6'11", had 5 block shots against Mizzou this past season. Only made 27% of his threes, though. Missed maybe his last 7 or so of the season, it looks like here with just a quick look at the game log. But that may not be the worst thing in the world. I will say this. I did enjoy the back and forth in the comment section when I asked of the very simple question, should Missouri basketball ever take a former Kansas Jayhawk? Well, the more rational side of me says yes, but I have to say I rather enjoyed all the people who said no, in particular my old buddy Blake, who is going in very hard in the comment section on the Jayhawks, as he should. That's very much on brand for Blake. And I will just say this sport does just make it harder and harder to be a fan of it sometimes, doesn't it? Hey, Bryson Tiller, if he comes, I'll talk myself into it and get used to it, without a doubt. But I was sort of the living embodiment of the Alonzo Mourning gif, shaking my head and trying to talk myself into something positive when I was just watching a young man, 4 months ago, block shots against Missouri in the Sprint Center, and now I'm supposed to just turn around and immediately go, yay, M-I-Z, and oh good, now we're playing Friday Night Football, and what's that? Oh, I have to pay more money for my tickets and parking, and I only get 1 parking pass this year? Interesting. All right, once again, I hope that for as long as the millennials and the boomers are around, we're going to keep shoveling our money into this program. But the young people, I don't know, man. Eventually, they're going to run out of resources unless all of us die, I guess. They're just going to have to wait and collect their inheritance at that point. But seriously, at a certain point, the next generation is going to start going, wait a second, I'd actually like to own a house at some point. Do I need to put all of my money into Missouri season tickets and NIL? Again, I guess that's a tomorrow guy problem, as Jerry Seinfeld might say. Now, on the football side of things, I will say it sounds like Eli Drinkwitz is maybe about as much of a fan as the transfer portal as a lot of us, which is to say, not the biggest fan is Eli Drinkwitz, which is somewhat ironic since I think Drinkwitz has done as good a job as any head coach, really, with maybe a few exceptions. He's certainly in the top 5 or 10, I would say, nationally, among coaches who have adapted to this new period here in the 2020s. And, well, I just thought this was an interesting quote here. Drinkwitz talking with KTRS on the radio said, quote, "In the early years, I really took it personally when somebody would leave or if they wanted to go into the portal. Now it's just the business. I don't know that it gets any easier. You just become more jaded to it. That's probably the biggest new reality for me. You do the best you can to give the opportunity you have and try to present the reasons why you believe they should be there. Then there's the realization that if somebody leaves, there's somebody else out there that's going to be excited about the opportunity at the University of Missouri." And indeed, that's the best way to deal with all of this. And while I've obviously had my complaints in this episode, been venting a little bit, of course, about the state of college athletics. But if you're going to be Eli Drinkwitz, if you're going to be a head coach, if you're going to be an assistant or an administrator, whatever it might be, you can sit there and complain about change. And this is something that you can do in every business, in every sport. You can sit there and complain about, well, it used to be different, yada, yada, yada. And of course, not all change is for the better. But the reality is you either adapt or you die. And I think Drinkwitz's attitude here, whether he likes it or not, is I'm going to adapt. I'm not just going to sit here and complain about the old days and wish into one hand and hope that somehow some other reality presents itself. Well, that's not going to happen. This is the reality that we all live in. You know, hey, there's going to be executive orders and changes and all kinds of stuff. That's the one thing. The one constant of life, ironically, is change, of course. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting topic to touch on as well. And you know what? I'm going to cut it a little short here on this Friday night. And it's quite possible, hey, we could get a couple more weekend editions of Locked On Mizzou going here. If there's some big news happening one way or the other in the portal, I'm basically going to be on call this weekend. So until next time, I'll see y'all right here on Locked On Mizzou.